All right, so now that we have a feel for sort of what the Neapolitan chord is, and we've looked a little bit at how to use it functionally, we want to look at one of the big questions here, which is how to use this kind of chord expressively. It's a really strong sounding chord, not meaning functionally, but in terms of character, identifiability, it really stands out. And so there is a certain amount of artistry in how you integrate a chord like this into a musical texture. So we're gonna look at an example here by Mozart, which does a really nice job at finding the right context to introduce a chord like this. So this is from a piano concerto in A major. This is from the second movement. You'll notice right away that it's very much not in A major right here, and this is what this sounds like. So there you go. Really quite a sort of the heartfelt thing. So here we are. We're in the key of F sharp minor. Not for the whole thing, but that's okay. And so let's just really quickly think in F sharp minor, what is going to be our Neapolitan chord, right? If F sharp is the root, we know we build this chord on the flat 2 scale degree, on Ra, and so that's going to be G natural. So if we're in F sharp minor, the Neapolitan chord is going to be built on G. There's Ra, Do, right? And it's going to be a G major chord because all Neapolitan chords are major. So it's going to be actually just G, B, D, right? And the beauty, as we've seen, is that the other two notes, B natural and D natural, are already in the key of F sharp minor. Those are notes that are really a part of the key. So the only funky note is Ra, which is the G natural that we're going to see here. So in this example, we don't really have to look too hard to find the Neapolitan chord. It's down here, it's on the last line, and it actually takes up 2 full measures. So our big question here is, what does Mozart do in this example that makes a 2 measure long Neapolitan chord work in such a great way? So let's get into it. So here we are, we're in F sharp minor, as I said, and the first measure, right, is just the 1 chord, right? So nothing special there. And then when we change chords in the second measure, we sort of have this lovely little figure there, right? And so actually, if we look on the beat with the first 2 beats, it might look like we are on a 4 chord, a 4/7 chord actually, B, D, F sharp, A. But if we listen to how the A moves, let's listen to the first measure and the first half of the second measure. Listen. Hear how the A resolves down to the G sharp? Right? And so actually, the A is a suspension from the previous measure. The G sharp is the real chord tone, and the B is just kind of there filling space. There's actually this really cool thing happening here. This is deeper than I want to get, but where Mozart actually has a 2-part melody here, has a 2, we call it sometimes a polyphonic melody, because he's got this part of the melody, and then you can see the second half of that first measure is it sort of spanning upwards to get to A, G sharp. And so really the B comes from the lower part of the melody. So the lower part is C sharp, D, C sharp, or Sol, La, Sol, Fa, the B natural, Sol, La, Sol, Fa, in the upper part, right? Sort of get this lovely split melody. Anyway, so it's actually, G sharp is actually the root of the chord. G sharp, B, D, F sharp, which is a 2 half diminished 4/2 chord. I accidentally have fully diminished there, but oh no. So that goes, and then we've got this just awesome E sharp. It's the leading tone of the key. We can pretty quickly identify, especially because it goes back to 1, that's a 5/6/5 going to 1. And again, we've got, number one, a couple of cool things going on here. Big range jumps, whether it's in the melody, or I love this in the left hand, jumping down to the E sharp. And then even here, that motion there. Here's another 2/6 chord before we get to a half cadence, right? Half cadence with a cadential 6/4. Sorry about that. Right, so that's the first line. I know I sort of glossed over some things there, but it's progression-wise, it's basically just 1 2 5 1 2 5, right? So it's not much going on harmonically, but Mozart does a lot to keep that fairly simple harmony done in a really, really, really interesting way by sort of masking it, making it sound a lot more complex than it really is. Okay, so now we're going to get into the real meat and potatoes of this. And again, the theme for this middle line here is we know that Mozart is leading up to, at the beginning of the third line, a huge investment of time on the Neapolitan chord. Right, huge investment in time. And really, we've seen so far, yeah, we had the 1 chord at the beginning and the 5 chord at the end of the first line here that took up an entire measure. The 6/4, cadential 6/4 sort of masks that. But nothing will last as long as that Neapolitan does. We already know that. And so we're going to see here in the second line that Mozart sort of even moves us more by having more chords and more harmonic complexity as we go along. And the first thing that we get, here's our half cadence again, is this amazing first chord of line 2. What chord should we have arrived at after this cadential 6/4? Where should we go after that? We should go to 1 F sharp minor, right? Absolutely. And if we look at the left hand, here's the end of line 1. First notes of line 2, right? That resolves F sharp and A, the root and the third of the 1 chord. But it's the right hand, it's the melody. Listen to the melody. Woo! See how it's so wrong, but it's so right? You know what I mean? So it's a D major chord, D, F sharp, A, which in F sharp minor would be 6. 6/6, in fact, which you know I often have warned against. We don't want to be too close to 6. 6/6. But here, we're actually okay because this isn't really a 6/6 chord, because listen to where, and listen to the left hand, right? We actually sort of have La, Ti, Do in A major. So we're actually modulating here to A major. So our 6/6 is actually a 4/6 in A major, 4/6. But again, Mozart has already played with our expectations here. We know that this cadential 6/4 should resolve and the melody should have repeated again, right? That's what the figure should have been, but instead, to this, ooh, that's so good. But then he's not done yet. Here's a 7 chord, right, half diminished. So here's the beginning of line 2. Now listen to this. Whoa. What is going on there? That B sharp, right? So Mozart says, hey, I heard at the beginning of line 2, you wanted to go to a minor chord. You thought we should have been on a minor chord. Okay, so I'm sorry for going to major. So what if instead of giving you major, I give you this B sharp, which sounds a whole lot like C natural, makes it minor, and he says, oops, I'm sorry. It resolves up. This is a really, really, really amazing spot. So we go to the wrong 1 chord, and then when he actually resolves to the note that we should have, right? This B sharp resolves to C sharp, goes to the note we should have. He pairs it with the chord, quote unquote, that we should have had all along. And again, my point here is we're looking at the way that Mozart pushes the boundary chromatically to make room for the Neapolitan. Tonally, harmonically, everything, right? That's a transcendent moment. And this is where Mozart, as a trickster, should have gone to minor here. So instead he gives us minor there. It's amazing. Keeps going here. Secondary function. We've got the D sharp pushing us towards some kind of E, but instead of the kind of E that we expect, he gives us E sharp, because now we sing again, oh, did you want to go back to F sharp minor? Okay, you've been complaining about these major minor confusions. So here's my E sharp, which is going to lead us to F sharp minor again, and he gives us, wow. So again, he hits a suspension type idea here. Like if we just look at the left hand, we think that's taking us right where we expect, and we hear this. That could be what he did. He could have done to F sharp minor, but instead B. So we think he's just gonna do a suspension to minor, but instead he passes through A sharp, making it major for 1 second before getting the A natural. So by the time the melody gets to the right note, B, A sharp, A, the chord has left. You ever sort of get in an argument with somebody and you're so done with it that you're the left hand in this scenario, right? You're so done with the argument that by the time you've been in it for so long, you don't even care if you're right anymore. You're just willing to change to the other person's perspective. But of course, the second you give up, the other person will agree with you at the right second. It's a very human moment. So in this second line, we've got these 2 amazing parallel measures. One where he goes to a major chord or a minor chord first before resolving to what should have been the major note. And here he goes to the major note first before going to the correct, quote unquote, minor note. All that to say, this middle line is so murky tonally and so murky harmonically, and it's okay if you didn't really follow exactly everything I'm saying. This is a really complicated line. I mean, we started out with this idea of 2 melodies in one, which is crazy. It's a complicated, the whole thing is very complicated, but harmonically and progression wise, all of this complication of wrong chords, of wrong, double wrong, sort of what's the word that I'm looking for? Resolutions, and then the secondary chords, which don't go to the kind of E you expect. And then this one last kick in the gut makes it so that when we hit the Neapolitan, it's amazing, right? And we can land. if we went to the Neapolitan after a less weird line, I mean, because like we said, the harmony at the beginning is actually really straightforward, even with the sort of hidden stuff he does. If this went this way, I can't talk and play at the same time. Right? The Neapolitans sort of would stand out a little bit there. But with all the crazy stuff in the second line, man, it feels like such an amazing moment to even just stay in one place for such a long time. 2 measures on the Neapolitan, of course, in first inversion, as is typical, before we just get to a really great cadential 6/4 at the end. So, like I said, I know that's complicated, and I know the second line, you could spend a semester just studying the second line, but I just wanted you to see that with a chord like the Neapolitan, which has such strong character and such a strong sound, composers really have to go to fairly great lengths to let it settle, to make it work. And Mozart certainly does that here by playing major tricks on us so that this crazy chord, F sharp minor, right? If we're in this, that's not the right chord, right? That chord is so outside of what we expect, but Mozart weaves it in such a way that the weird chord sounds normal compared to all the other stuff he was doing. So anyway, just wanted to share that with you. Wolfie and the Neapolitan, what you going to say?